Reservoir pool is the reservoir of all the biogenetic nutrients or the resources. And aquatic plants absorb those dissolved CO2, those dissolved carbon, and this is again repeated. Okay. Some lime rocks, the limestone caves contains the lime rocks in the form of stalactites and stalagmites. Carbon is again returned from the cycling pool to the reservoir pool, and from the reservoir pool it is again gets dissolved in water and absorbed by the producers, or directly due to photosynthesis the gaseous CO2 and the carbon therein is again trapped by the producers, transferred to the consumers, decomposers, and the cycle is repeated throughout the biosphere. Now we will look into the part of nutrient cycling. Nutrient cycling is a very important ecological function. Without nutrient cycling, since our ecosystem contains very limited resources, without nutrient cycling, all those nutrients and all those resources would not have been able to be recycled inside our ecosystem, and hence gradually as the communities grew in size, as they became more diverse and more populous, the nutrients and the resources would have become more and more diminished until and unless there would have been no resources left anymore in the ecosystem to sustain life, and all the communities would have become extinct. So nutrient cycling is a very important ecological function necessary to maintain life and diversity in the ecosystem and to maintain the stability of the communities. Different kinds of communities, both biotic and abiotic factors, play an important part in the role of nutrient cycling in the ecological functions. The amount of nutrients present at a given time in the soil, nutrients can be humus, CO2, O2, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc., present in the soil at a given period of time or at any given time is known as the standing nutrients. Okay, the standing stage or the standing nutrients. Any kind of nutrients present in the soil at any given time is the standing nutrients or the standing stage. And the standing stage is maintained by two pools, the reservoir pool and the cycling pool. What is the reservoir pool? Reservoir pool is the reservoir of all the biogenetic nutrients or the resources. Now why biogenetic? Because genes are also recycled in the community through interbreeding, right? So genes are also recycled along with the biotic nutrients and the abiotic factors necessary for life. So reservoir pool is the reservoir of all such nutrients. It stores, it acts as a bank of all such nutrients such as the atmosphere, and from the reservoir pool the nutrients are gradually transferred to the cycling pool, okay, where it is recycled among the various biotic and abiotic components of the biosphere. Okay, so this is the pool of biogenetic nutrients exchange between the biotic and the abiotic components of biosphere. The main exchange or the main cycling or the recycling of nutrients occurred in the cycling pool, and the source of the nutrients is the reservoir pool. So from the reservoir pool the nutrients come to the cycling pool, where they are transferred and exchanged and recycled among the various biotic and abiotic components, and part of it are again returned to the reservoir pool, from which again they come back to the cycling pool. Okay, so the reservoir pool and the cycling pool, it acts as a continuous loop for nutrient cycling. This can be demonstrated through the carbon cycle. I have illustrated the carbon cycle for you. The carbon cycle. Okay. This CO2 is the atmospheric carbon dioxide, and this is the reservoir pool for carbon in the ecosystem. Okay, or the entire biosphere, you can say. Okay, this is the atmospheric CO2, and this is the reservoir pool for carbon in the biosphere. How? From the reservoir pool it is coming to the, and this portion of the cycle is the cycling pool, and how from the reservoir pool a particular nutrient is coming to the cycling pool, this is illustrated in the carbon cycle. So atmospheric CO2, the reservoir pool for carbon. From this reservoir pool, the carbon is coming to the producers, and the producers, consumers and decomposers, they form a part of the cycling pool. And also the water bodies, the rocks, the peat, coals that are inside the soil, the subsoil region, the topsoil region, the water, the hydrological regions, okay, that is the lithosphere, the hydrosphere and the biosphere, the producers, consumers, decomposers, they all form the cycling pool. So from the reservoir pool, carbon in the form of CO2 is coming to the producers, for photosynthesis. For photosynthesis is coming to the producers. From producers, energy and carbon is getting transferred to the consumers, and from the consumers the carbon is getting transferred to the decomposers. But the producers also undergo respiration, consumers also undergo respiration, decomposers also undergo respiration, and we know that respiration results in the production and release of carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide through respiration is again returned back to the atmosphere, and through the carbon dioxide that is being again returned back to the atmosphere, carbon is also returned back to the atmosphere. Okay, and some atmospheric carbon dioxide gets dissolved in water, in the water bodies, and aquatic plants absorb those dissolved CO2, those dissolved carbon, and this is again repeated. Okay, some lime rocks, the limestone caves contains the lime rocks in the form of stalactites and stalagmites. They also undergo weathering by the action of various bacteria, lichen, moss, ferns, and they also release the CO2 in the water present in the caves, and those carbon dioxide rich water are again utilized by the producers, consumers, decomposers inside the cave ecosystem, and carbon is recycled again in this way. Also, when producers die, okay, they die and decompose. They also die and decompose. Producers and consumers, they both die. They both decompose. Okay, they are broken down by the decomposers through the process of respiration, both aerobic and anaerobic, releasing carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere, and in turn releasing carbon back into the atmosphere or the reservoir pool from the cycling pool. Again, when the producers die, when the consumers die, they get buried under the soil and they form peat, coal, oil and natural gas. These are also broken down by the decomposers, releasing the carbon dioxide and in turn releasing the carbon into the atmosphere or the reservoir pool. Also, these are known as fossil fuels. These are known as fossil fuels because they are formed by the death and the decomposition of producers and consumers by the decomposers through through combustion we burn fossil fuels to produce energy for different kind of purposes. Through combustion, carbon dioxide is liberated and they are again returned back to the atmosphere, and hence the carbon trapped in the peat, coal and oil in the subsoil region or in the lithosphere region, the carbon is again returned back to the reservoir pool through combustion. Through the formation of and liberation of carbon dioxide, carbon is returned back to the atmosphere. Okay. And such peat, coal and oil, they are sometimes released from the soil in the form of natural gas. Through the form of natural gas, and the natural gas escapes back into the atmosphere containing carbon, and since carbon is again returned from the cycling pool to the reservoir pool, and from the reservoir pool it is again gets dissolved in water and absorbed by the producers, or directly due to photosynthesis the gaseous CO2 and the carbon therein is again trapped by the producers, transferred to the consumers, decomposers, and the cycle is repeated throughout the biosphere. So this is how carbon is recycled and transferred between the biotic and the abiotic components of the biosphere, and also between the reservoir pool and the cycling pool. So one part of the nutrient cycle and the proper transfer of a particular element or a particular nutrient can be demonstrated by the carbon cycle. And also the amount of carbon present in the lime rocks or present in the soil at any given time is known as the standing nutrient. Okay, so this is all we need to know about the carbon cycle.